The battle was supposed to last 3 days. That was what every model predicted. 3 days of fire, loss, and destruction. Millions of lives, broken fleets, scarred systems. The galaxy had seen this pattern many times before, and it always ended the same way: one side crushed, the other weakened, and everyone else watching carefully. The alien fleet arrived first. They filled the dark space near the border world like a living wall. Ships of every class moved into position. Weapons warmed. Commanders waited with calm confidence. They had the numbers, had the advantage. This war would be costly, but it would be decisive. Then the humans arrived at first. Nothing seemed unusual. Their fleet was strong but not overwhelming. Their ships were advanced but not unfamiliar. No massive superweapons, no strange energy signatures, no signs of desperation or aggression. They formed clean lines, held formation, and waited. Alien observers relaxed slightly. "This'll be like the others," one commander said. "Humans fight well, but they bleed like everyone else." The signal to engage was given. The first exchange was brutal and fast. Human ships moved with precision, not speed. They did not rush forward. They did not spread out. Instead, they focused on very specific targets: communication relays, navigation hubs, supply vessels. Alien weapons struck back hard. Several human ships were damaged. One was destroyed. The alien fleet prepared to push forward, sensing momentum. Then something strange happened. The humans stopped advancing. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They simply stopped. Alien commanders hesitated. This was not a known tactic. Most wars, stopping meant weakness. It meant the enemy was confused or broken, but the humans were neither. Human ships adjusted positions slightly, maintaining distance. They fired again, but only at critical systems. Power grids failed. Command signals stuttered. Several alien capital ships lost coordination. Still, the humans did not press the advantage. An alien analyst spoke quietly over the command channel. "They could break our line now," she said. "Their firing solutions are clear." The commander frowned. "Then why aren't they?" No one answered. Minutes passed. Then hours. The battle did not grow. It shrank. Human strikes became fewer, not more. Alien ships began to fall back, not because they were losing, but because they could not function properly. Systems failed in careful patterns. Nothing exploded unnecessarily. No planets were targeted. Civilian zones remained untouched by the end of the first day. The alien fleet was no longer fighting, they were surviving. The humans sent no victory message, no demand, no threat. They simply withdrew. The battle ended before it truly began. Across the galaxy, sensors recorded the outcome with confusion. The alien fleet was not destroyed. The humans had taken losses. And yet the war was over. Alien command rooms filled with silence. "This makes no sense," one admiral said. "They could have ended us." "Yes," another replied. "They chose not to." That was the moment fear began. Not fear of human strength, fear of human choice. In the days that followed, analysts reviewed the battle frame by frame. They slowed recordings. They replayed tactical decisions. They compared the outcome to every known war doctrine. The conclusion was unsettling. Humans had followed none of the expected paths. They did not maximize damage. They did not secure total victory. They did not pursue retreating enemies. They fought only until the war stopped being necessary. One alien strategist wrote in a private report, "Humans do not fight to win. They fight to end." The report was flagged, then buried. Some ideas were too uncomfortable to share. Still, rumors spread. Other species began sharing similar stories, battles that ended too cleanly, conflicts that should have escalated but didn't. Human fleets that arrived, solved the problem, left before anyone could thank or challenge them. Patterns formed, and patterns frightened the galaxy. An emergency council was called among several alien powers. It did not invite humans. "We need to understand what they are doing," one leader said, "before it is too late." "Too late for what?" another asked. "For everything," came the reply. They studied human military records, trade logs, diplomatic history.
Oh,
Nothing suggested weakness. Nothing suggested exhaustion. Humanity was growing stronger by every known measure, and yet their wars were growing smaller. One analyst finally asked the question no one wanted to ask. What if humans are not fighting at full strength? The room went quiet. That is impossible, a general said. Why would anyone do that? The analyst swallowed. Because they are afraid. Afraid of us? The general demanded. No, the analyst said slowly. Afraid of themselves. The idea spread like a shockwave. What kind of species limits itself on purpose? What kind of species wins, then stops? Human silence did not help. They offered no explanations, no clarifications. Their diplomats spoke calmly, carefully, always pushing for de-escalation, shared limits, and temporary solutions, never permanent control, never total victory. The galaxy did not know how to respond. For centuries, power had meant expansion, survival meant domination, weakness meant extinction. These rules had never failed until humans appeared and broke them without announcing it. On one distant world, an alien historian began rewriting a chapter in a living document titled Patterns of Galactic Power. He paused, then added a new line under a blank section. Humans, an anomaly. Strength unknown. Limits intentional. He stared at the words for a long time. That day, the galaxy did not realize humans were the strongest species. That realization would come later. What the galaxy realized instead slowly, comfortably, was far more frightening. Humans were holding back, and no one knew from what. After the battle ended too early, the galaxy tried to move on. Official reports were filed. Borders were redrawn. Public statements spoke of mutual de-escalation and temporary resolution. But behind closed doors, no one was satisfied. Too many questions remained unanswered. And questions had a way of growing when ignored. Alien intelligence agencies began their work quietly at first. They focused only on the recent battle. Every movement was mapped. Every shot was timed. Every pause was measured. Analysts searched for mistakes, hidden advantages, or secret weapons. They found none. Human ships had acted within known limits. No unknown technology appeared. No impossible maneuver was recorded. That made the outcome even more disturbing. An analyst from the Kareth Union leaned back in his chair after days of review and said, "If this was a mistake, it is the most disciplined mistake I have ever seen." His supervisor did not laugh. Soon the review widened. Intelligence teams pulled records from decades of encounters with humans. Border skirmishes, pirate suppression, full wars, peacekeeping missions. At first, each event looked different. Different enemies, different locations, different outcomes. But when the data was layered together, a pattern emerged. Humans never pursued total destruction in every major conflict. There was a moment when humans could have ended everything. The data showed it clearly. Enemy fleets exposed. Supply chains collapsed. Command structures broken. And every time, humans slowed down. They stopped firing first. They accepted ceasefires that favored the enemy. They withdrew before taking territory. This was not weakness. Weak species did not survive long enough to show restraint. This was something else. One young analyst noticed something even stranger. Human losses did not increase when they held back. In many cases, losses decreased. By refusing to push forward, humans avoided desperate counterattacks. By not humiliating the enemy, they prevented revenge wars. The analyst wrote in his notes, "They reduced the future cost by paying less now." His team ignored the comment at first, then they could not stop thinking about it. Another team studied human technology development. They expected to find secret weapons hidden in black projects. Instead, they found gaps. Entire research paths abandoned after early success. Weapon systems capped below theoretical maximum. Artificial intelligence restricted by hard limits written into law, not code. One alien engineer stared at the files in disbelief. They solved these problems, she said. Then they walked away. Her partner answered no. They stepped back. The difference mattered. As the reports multiplied, fear spread through intelligence circles. These were not random decisions. They were consistent, repeated, and global. No single human leader could have enforced this pattern across centuries. It had to be cultural. That idea frightened them more than any weapon. Cultures did not change easily. Cultures survived disasters, wars, and revolutions. If human restraint was cultural, then it was stable. And if it was stable, then it was intentional. An emergency meeting was called among several alien powers. Representatives spoke carefully, choosing words that would not spread panic if leaked. A senior diplomat summarized the findings. In a single sentence, humans act like a species that has already lost control once. The room fell silent. Explain. Someone demanded, the diplomat continued. They behave as if power is a known danger, as if they learned the lesson the hard way. No one liked that explanation, but no one could reject it either. Some argued that humans were hiding something greater. That restraint was a mask, that one day they would unleash everything at once. But this theory did not fit the evidence. Humans had faced extinctional-level threats before. They still held back. An intelligence director asked the hardest question of all. What are they holding back from? No answer came. Meanwhile, human behavior remained unchanged. Their diplomats continued to push for limits, shared oversight, and temporary authority. Their fleets maintained defensive postures, even in victory. Human media spoke openly about past mistakes, failed wars, and the cost of unchecked power. To alien observers, this openness was unsettling. No other species discussed its own failures so freely. One alien sociologist studying human culture noted, they treat their history like a warning, not a trophy. As rumors leaked into civilian populations, reactions varied. Some aliens began to fear humans deeply. Others began to respect them. A few began to imitate them, slowing their own expansions, limiting their own weapons. These species survived longer than expected. The connection was not missed. Back, intelligence headquarters, the final report took shape. It was labeled Restricted Existential Risk. Its opening line read, Humanity does not seek maximum power. Humanity seeks survivable power. The authors hesitated. Before adding the next line, this suggests humanity believes maximum power is not survivable. That sentence changed everything. Because if humans believed this, then they were not just reacting to fear. They were reacting to memory. A final section of the report posed a hypothetical scenario. What if humans ever stopped limiting themselves? What if whatever line they feared was crossed? The projected outcomes were terrifying. Not because humans would conquer the galaxy, but because no one would be able to stop them once they stopped stopping themselves. The report was locked away. Only the highest councils saw it. But fear, once created, did not need documents to survive. Across the galaxy, commanders began issuing quiet orders. Avoid provoking humans. Do not force decisive conflicts. Do not push them into corners. Because no one knew what would happen if humans decided restraint was no longer enough, and that uncertainty was worse than any known threat. The galaxy had not yet realized what humans were limiting themselves from, but it had begun to understand one thing clearly. If humans ever stopped holding back, it would mean they believed survival no longer mattered, and that thought kept entire civilizations awake at night. The reports from intelligence agencies did not satisfy the galaxy. Patterns explained behavior, but they did not explain cause. Knowing that humans were limiting themselves only made one question louder. What exactly were they limiting? To answer that, alien powers turned to infiltration, not invasion, not war. Observation trade hubs were watched. Human research partners were questioned politely. Data moved through neutral markets where information was sold quietly, one fragment at a time. Nothing illegal, nothing aggressive, just curiosity, sharpened by fear. What they found was more unsettling than secret weapons. they found absence. Human technology was advanced, but it was strangely incomplete. Where other species pushed every discovery to its breaking point, humans often stopped early. Entire research programs ended just as success became possible. The files did not say failure. They said closed. Alien scientists could not understand this. One researcher stared at a human physics archive and said, "They reached the solution," and then refused to take the next step. Weapon designers found similar gaps. Humans had the math for energy weapons that could erase fleets instantly. They had prototypes for autonomous war systems that could fight without pause or doubt. They had early versions of tools that could reshape planets, but none of these systems were active. In many cases, they were not even preserved. The records showed careful dismantling, legal review, public debate, and then cancellation. An alien engineer reviewing the data whispered, "They solved the problem of power," and then they locked it away. The deeper they looked, the more deliberate it seemed. These were not random decisions by scared leaders. These were coordinated limits enforced over centuries, across governments, cultures. In crises, this could not be fear alone. It had to be experience. Alien historians joined the investigation. They stopped studying human victories and began studying human pauses. Moments where humanity reached dominance, then stepped back. Colonies that could have become empires, but instead became independent allies. Conflicts that could have turned into occupation, but ended with withdrawal, again and again. Humans chose not to cross certain lines. One historian marked those moments in red on a long timeline. The red marks formed a clear shape, a boundary. Humans were not moving randomly. They were orbiting a limit. That limit had no name. An alien council meeting grew tense as findings were shared. One leader spoke with frustration. "Every species seeks advantage. Why would humans deny themselves?" A quieter voice answered from the back of the room. "Maybe they learned that some advantages cost more than they give." Silence followed. That answer felt too close to truth. The search shifted again. This time, aliens studied human laws, not technologies. They found entire legal frameworks designed to prevent certain actions, even in extreme emergencies. Limits on military authority, mandatory civilian oversight, forced delays before irreversible decisions. One alien jurist studied these systems in disbelief. "They built brakes into their power," she said, "not to stop others, to stop themselves." The idea spread slowly. Fear changed shape. Humans were no longer frightening because they were unpredictable. They were frightening because they were predictable in one specific way. They always stopped. That raised a terrifying question. What would make them stop stopping? The galaxy did not know the answer, but the question haunted every discussion. Some alien powers began to test human limits carefully. Small provocations, border pressure, economic interference. Nothing large enough to force full response. Humans responded calmly. They pushed back just enough. They de-escalated when possible. They refused to escalate when escalation would secure dominance. Each test confirmed the same thing. The limits were real. One alien commander admitted privately, "They are fighting with one hand tied behind their back, and still winning." That was when panic truly set in, because a species that wins while holding back is not strong. It is contained alien intelligence. Produced a final report titled, "The Cost of Removing the Limits." The scenarios were theoretical, but terrifying. Without restraint, human decision-making speed would increase. Their weapon systems would scale rapidly. Their cultural hesitation would vanish. They would not conquer the galaxy. They would reshape it. The report ended with a simple warning. Human restraint is the last barrier between order and something we cannot survive. No one knew how humans enforced this restraint across generations. Education, culture, law, fear, perhaps all of them. But one thing was clear. Humans were not hiding weapons. They were hiding themselves. On a distant human world, a group of students debated history in a classroom. One asked why humans never built certain technologies, even when they could. Their teacher answered calmly, "Because we know what happens when power moves faster than wisdom." The students nodded. As if this was obvious, that was the most frightening discovery of all. Human restraint was not secret knowledge. It was common sense. The galaxy watched humanity more closely than ever before. Not waiting for an attack, waiting for a change. Because if the day ever came when humans stopped limiting themselves, it would mean they believed the cost no longer mattered. And when a species decides that history tends to end, when patterns and missing technologies failed to give the galaxy peace of mind, alien leaders turned to the last place they had avoided for too long: human history, not human battle records, not victories, human mistakes. At first, this idea was dismissed. Every species studied its own past. Every empire hid its failures and celebrated its triumphs. Aliens assumed humans did the same. But the first human archives they accessed proved otherwise. Human history was open. Painfully. Alien researchers entered digital libraries filled with accounts of wars humans lost, leaders who failed, and systems that collapsed under their own power. There were no filters, no heroic rewrites, no attempt to soften the truth. One alien archivist paused to playback and said quietly, "They preserved their shame." That alone was unusual. The deeper the researchers went, the more disturbing the pattern became. Humans had reached moments of extreme dominance on their own world many times. They had built weapons no enemy could match. They had created systems that could control entire populations. And every time, something followed, not victory. Correction, there were records of powerful governments that dissolved themselves after wars. Laws written specifically to limit future leaders. Technologies banned not because they failed, but because they worked too well. One alien historian reviewed an ancient human conflict where a single nation gained total control over its rivals. The outcome should have been an empire that lasted centuries. Instead, humans dismantled it. Why? The historian asked aloud. The answer appeared in the next archive file. A speech by a human leader, long dead, saying simple words, "Because we saw what we were becoming." The historian closed the file and sat in silence. Across the galaxy, similar reactions spread. Alien scholars who once believed humans were reckless now saw something else. Humans did not deny their hunger for power. They planned for it. They assumed they would misuse power eventually, so they prepared limits in advance. One alien sociologist summarized. Yet in a private report, humans do not trust their leaders. They do not trust their systems. They do not even trust themselves. And because of that, they survive. That idea challenged everything the galaxy believed. Most species built power to remove doubt. Humans built doubt to control power. As the findings reached political circles, reactions grew intense. Some alien leaders felt relief. Humans were not monsters waiting to strike. Others felt something closer to dread. A species that knew itself this well could not be manipulated easily. An emergency council was called. This time, humans were invited. The chamber filled with voices from dozens of civilizations. The atmosphere was tense, not hostile, but uncertain. Everyone knew why they were there. An alien counselor spoke first. "We have studied your wars," she said. "Not against us. Against yourselves." Human delegates listened without interruption. "We have seen your restraint," she continued. "Your limits. Your refusals. Why?" The room waited. A human historian stood, older than most. His voice calm. "Because we remember what happens when we don't," he said. That was all. The simplicity unsettled the council. Another alien leader leaned forward. "You speak as if power itself is dangerous." The human nodded. "It is." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "For us," the alien said, "power is safety." "For us," the human replied, "power is temptation." That difference changed everything. The discussion lasted hours. Aliens asked why humans did not hide their strongest tools. Why they allowed others to see their limits? Why they refused permanent authority even when asked? The human answers were always the same. Because limits must be visible. Because power hidden becomes power worshipped. Because restraint only works if it is shared. One alien commander finally said what many were thinking. If you are always holding back, what happens if you stop? The humans did not answer right away. When one finally spoke, his voice was quiet. Then it means we believe there is nothing left to save. The chamber went still. That single sentence carried more threat than any weapon. After the council ended, fear spread in a new form. Not panic. Not anger. Respect mixed with unease. Human restraint was no longer a rumor. It was confirmed, documented, explained, and now it had a name. Among alien scholars, it became known as the human pause. The moment where power waited for wisdom, some civilizations began copying human limits. Not fully, but partially. Emergency powers gained expiration dates. Military actions required more than one authority. Technologies faced ethical delays before deployment. These societies survived longer. Others refused. They saw restraint as weakness. They accelerated their own expansion, believing humans would never act decisively. They were wrong. Humans still defended themselves. Humans still acted when needed. But they acted with precision, not hunger. They ended threats, not futures. Over time, alien populations began to shift their view. Children learned about human history not as a series of victories, but as lessons about control. Teachers spoke of a species that learned to fear victory more than defeat. One alien student asked a simple question. In class, if humans limit themselves, are they free? The instructor paused before answering. They are free, she said, because they choose their limits. That answer spread faster than any official decree the galaxy had. Believe that strength meant taking everything you could. Humans had proven another kind of strength existed, and that realization made every other species uncomfortable because it forced them to ask a question they had never asked before. If humans could learn to stop themselves, why couldn't we? The galaxy did not have an answer, but it now knew the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not slow. Humans were not afraid of enemies. They were afraid of losing control of themselves. And that fear, more than fleets or weapons, was shaping the future of the stars. The secret did not stay quiet forever. It surfaced during a crisis that could not be hidden. Not even by careful words or closed doors. Two major alien powers moved toward open war in a crowded sector of space. Trade routes crossed there. Civilian worlds depended on those routes to survive. If the war began, millions would suffer within days. The Galactic Council gathered in an emergency session. This time, the chamber was full. Leaders stood instead of sitting. Voices overlapped. Fear made everyone impatient. Many eyes turned toward the human delegation before anyone spoke. The expectation was clear. Humans were supposed to end this. An alien minister finally raised his voice above the others. You have the ability, he said, pointing toward the humans. You can stop this before it begins. We know you can. The room fell quiet. Human representatives exchanged brief looks. No one smiled. No one looked proud. The lead human delegate stepped forward slowly. We will help, she said. But we will not decide this for you. Confusion rippled through the chamber. What does that mean? Another leader demanded. You always decide, in the end. You stop the war. That is what you do. The human shook her head. We stop wars when stopping them does not replace one danger with another. The alien leaders did not understand. Some grew angry. You are withholding help, one accused. People will die because of your hesitation. The human delegate did not deny it. People also die when power is used without limits, she replied. That was when it happened. An alien general stood up and spoke the words that changed everything. Stop pretending, he said. You are not hesitant. You are holding back. We know now. The room froze. We have studied your history, the general continued. Your missing technologies, your laws, your behavior. You limit yourselves. On purpose. Murmurs spread like fire. The human delegates did not react. They did not argue. Their silence was an answer. So tell us, the general said. What are you afraid of? The human delegate looked around the chamber. She did not rush. She did not lower her voice. We are afraid of becoming unstoppable, she said. The words echoed. Every species seeks strength, she continued. We did too. We found it. More than once. And each time we learned the same lesson. She paused. When nothing can stop you, nothing can correct you. The chamber erupted. Some leaders shouted in disbelief. Others whispered in fear. A few sat very still, understanding too quickly. So you will let this war happen? A counselor demanded. No, the human replied. We will limit it. That answer made no sense to them. Humans proposed a plan that shocked the council. They offered evacuation corridors, shared intelligence, and neutral enforcement zones. They refused to choose a winner. They refused to deploy any system that would end the war instantly. We will reduce harm, the human said. We will not replace your choices, several leaders protested. They wanted certainty. They wanted finality. You are forcing us to take responsibility, one said bitterly. Yes, the human replied. Because responsibility does not disappear when power does. The council argued for hours. In the end, the plan passed not because everyone agreed, but because there was no better option. The war did not begin as predicted. It slowed. Negotiations followed. Casualties were far lower than expected, but the real change was not on the way. It's battlefield. It was in perception. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humans were not refusing to act because they were weak. They were refusing because they were disciplined. News spread quickly, not through official announcements, but through conversations, analysis shows, and private briefings. Citizens across many worlds debated the same question. Why would the strongest species limit itself? Some feared humans more than ever. A species that chose restraint could choose otherwise. Others felt something unexpected relief. Humans were powerful, yes, but predictable in one crucial way. They always stopped themselves. Alien scholars began using a new phrase in public discussions: human self-binding. It described a species that tied its own hands to avoid breaking everything it touched. Not everyone admired this. A growing faction of alien powers argued that humans were irresponsible, that refusing to end wars quickly was a moral failure. That restraint was a luxury paid for by others' suffering. Human leaders heard these accusations and did not dismiss them. They debated them openly, even among themselves. Are we doing harm by not using all our strength? One human asked, another answered, or are we doing harm by pretending strength has no cost? The question had no clean answer. As weeks passed, the crisis faded, but the realization did not. Alien leaders adjusted their strategies. Some avoided humans entirely. Others sought closer ties, hoping to learn restraint without losing security. A few began pushing limits deliberately, testing whether humans would break their own rules. Humans responded the same way each time. Calm pressure, clear boundaries, no escalation beyond what was necessary. They were not passive. They were controlled. An alien historian recorded the moment as a turning point. This was the day, she wrote, when the galaxy stopped asking what humans could do and started asking why they wouldn't. The war that should have defined the era became a footnote. The revelation defined everything else. Humans had drawn a line, and the galaxy had seen it clearly for the first time. It was not a line of weapons or territory. It was a line of identity. Crossing it would mean becoming something they refused to be. And now that everyone knew, the galaxy faced a new and unsettling truth. The most powerful species did not fear enemies. They feared losing themselves. After the truth became public, the galaxy did not calm down. It changed. Fear no longer pointed in one direction. Before, most species feared what humans might do to them. Now, they feared something far more difficult to predict, what humans might refuse to do. That fear spread slowly. Like cold through metal dot, alien governments held emergency meetings. Not to prepare for war, but to rewrite assumptions. For centuries, power had followed the same rules. Stronger fleets meant safety. Faster weapons meant survival. Decisive force meant control. Humans had broken those rules. They had the power. They proved it repeatedly. And yet, they stepped back. No model could explain that. In some systems, fear turned into imitation. Smaller civilizations began limiting their own weapons, hoping restraint might protect them the way it protected humans. Councils passed laws placing time limits on emergency powers. Military commanders were forced to share authority instead of holding it
alone.
These societies did not become weaker. They became harder to destabilize. Other civilizations reacted the opposite way. They believed humans were dangerous precisely because of their restraint. They argued that a species capable of limitless force, but choosing not to use it, could snap at any moment. These groups began preparing quietly. Fleets expanded. Secret weapons programs accelerated. Defensive lines hardened. Their logic was simple. If humans ever stopped limiting themselves, the galaxy would not survive. The only hope was to be ready. Humans noticed these changes. They did not respond with threats. They did not respond with reassurance. They responded with silence. That silence was worse than any warning. Human fleets adjusted patrols, but did not expand them. Human diplomats acknowledged fears, but offered no promises. When asked directly if humans would ever remove their limits, the answers were always careful. "We do not know," they said. That decision would mean something has gone very wrong. For many alien leaders, that answer was terrifying, because it meant the limits were not based on treaties or fear of retaliation. They were based on judgment, and judgment could change. A major test came sooner than expected. In a distant sector, a powerful alien empire launched a rapid expansion. They conquered 3 systems in weeks. Their fleets were fast, aggressive, and efficient. Smaller species fled or surrendered. The empire believed humans would not interfere. They were wrong. Human forces arrived not to fight the empire, but to block its momentum. Supply routes were disrupted. Communication lines jammed. Refugee corridors opened under human protection. The empire's advance slowed, then stalled. The human fleets did not destroy the enemy. They did not seize territory. They stayed just long enough to stop the expansion from continuing. Then they left. Alien observers were stunned, one analyst said. They could have ended the empire, another replied. They ended the threat instead. The distinction mattered. Across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some leaders felt relief. Humans were still protecting balance. Others felt frustration. Humans had the power to impose order and refused to use it. Fully, a heated debate erupted on the Galactic Council floor. "You are choosing chaos over control," one leader accused. The human delegate answered calmly, "We are choosing limits over certainty." "Certainty saves lives," the leader argued. Sometimes the human replied, "And sometimes it destroys futures." The argument went nowhere. But the message was clear. Humans would not become the galaxy's ruler. They would become its boundary over time. This changed how wars were fought. No empire could grow unchecked, because humans would intervene just enough to stop dominance. No alliance could collapse into total war, because humans would force pauses, negotiations, and exits. Humans did not lead the galaxy. They stabilized it. By refusing to control it, children on distant worlds began learning new lessons. History classes spoke of the era before humans, when wars ended only through destruction. Teachers described how humans introduced something strange and uncomfortable into galactic politics, the idea that winning everything was not the goal, An alien student once asked, "Why don't humans take power if they can?" The teacher answered, "Because they know what happens when no one can say no to you." That idea spread quietly. Human society also felt the weight of restraint. Not all humans agreed with their leaders. Some argued that refusing full power caused unnecessary suffering. They pointed to wars that could have been ended instantly. Human leaders did not silence these voices. They allowed debate. They accepted doubt. Restraint does not mean certainty, one leader said publicly. It means responsibility. Not everyone found that comforting. But over time, something unexpected happened. Fear of humans slowly changed into something else. Trust, not complete trust. Not blind faith, but trust rooted in predictability. The galaxy learned that humans would always stop before becoming unstoppable. That knowledge became a form of safety. One alien philosopher wrote, "Humans are not the strongest because they can win. They are the strongest because they know when to stop." The phrase appeared in academic papers, then speeches, then public conversation. Meanwhile, the civilizations that refused restraint began collapsing under their own weight. Their expansions created enemies. Their control bred rebellion. Humans did not intervene to save them. They intervened only to protect others from the Tono-Z. Collapse, this distinction became clear. Humans did not punish ambition. They prevented catastrophe. As decades passed, the galaxy adapted to this new reality. Power was no longer measured only by how much one could take, but by how much one could refuse. And at the center of it all stood humanity, not as rulers, not as gods, but as the one species everyone watched closely because no one knew what would happen if humans ever decided the limits were no longer enough. That uncertainty never faded. But neither did the realization that as long as humans continued to hold back, the galaxy had a chance to survive itself. Fear had not disappeared. It had simply changed sides. Years passed and the galaxy did not collapse. That surprised almost everyone. There was no single ruler. No final authority that decided every conflict. Borders still shifted. Arguments still turned into small wars. But something fundamental had changed. Wars no longer swallowed entire civilizations. Conflicts ended before they erased the future. And at the center of this change was not a throne. It was a choice. Humanity never removed its limits. As new generations rose, many wondered if the old fears were outdated. They studied the same data and reached the same conclusion their ancestors had reached long ago. Power without restraint always asked for more. It never gave anything back. Alien historians tracked the change carefully. They noticed that after humans revealed their self-limits, the galaxy adjusted its behavior. Expansion slowed. Alliances became cautious. Threats were measured instead of shouted. The galaxy had learned something uncomfortable. There was a difference between strength and control. Humans were strong, but they refused control on one distant world. An alien academy held a public debate about human influence. Students argued late into the night. Some claimed humans were selfish for refusing to end wars quickly. Others said humans were the only reason wars did not destroy everything. The debate ended when a young student asked a simple question. If humans ruled us, who would stop them? No one answered. That silence said everything. Human society continued to evolve quietly. They built better ships, faster travel, and stronger defenses, but every advance came with discussion, oversight, and limits written in law. Children were taught not only what humanity could do, but what it should never do. Human schools taught a lesson most species never considered necessary. Power is easy, teachers said. Stopping yourself is hard. In human military academies, cadets studied restraint as carefully as tactics. Victory was not measured by destruction, but by stability. The goal was never domination. It was survival dashed together. Alien cultures began copying this mindset more openly. Some failed. Some succeeded. But even failure proved something important. Restraint was difficult, possible. A few civilizations tried to challenge humans directly, believing they could force them to remove their limits. These attempts ended quickly, not with conquest, but with containment. Humans intervened just enough to stop the threat, then withdrew, always withdrew. This consistency became legendary. An alien historian recorded it as a turning point in galactic thought. Before humans, power was something you took. After humans, power became something you proved you could release. The phrase spread as decades turned into generations. Children across many species learned the story of the day the galaxy realized humans were limiting themselves. It was taught not as fear, but as warning. Not as praise, but as instruction. One version of the lesson ended with a simple truth. Humanity survived because it understood its own danger. The humans who made the first decisions were long gone by then. Their names faded from records. No statues were built in their honor. Humanity did not glorify that moment. They preserved it in quiet archives. Recordings remained of old debates, warnings, and doubts. Not to scare future leaders, but to remind them. One human archivist summarized it best. We did not save the galaxy by being the strongest. We saved it by knowing when strength becomes a threat. Far away, on a neutral world, an alien philosopher stood before a monument. It did not show a human warrior or fleet. It showed an empty space, shaped like something that was never built. A child asked the philosopher what it meant. He answered, "It is a reminder of something humans chose not to become." The child frowned. "Why?" The philosopher smiled sadly. "Because they knew they could." That answer stayed with the child and with the galaxy. In the end, humanity did not dominate history. It guided it, not with commands, not with weapons, but with restraint. The galaxy learned that absolute power was not the greatest danger. The greatest danger was forgetting why you wanted power in the first place. Humans never forgot that was their true legacy. Not victory, not conquest, but the courage to stop,